Have you ever wondered if you're unintentionally holding yourself back in old age? Could the habits you've developed over the years be preventing you from living your best, most fulfilling life? In this video, we're going to explore the 5 common signs of foolishness in old age habits that many of us unknowingly adopt, which stop us from growing, learning, and truly embracing the golden years. You'll hear about the subtle dangers of a closed mind, the power of taking responsibility for your happiness, and how arrogance and fear of change can isolate you. But it's not just about identifying these habits. It's about giving you the tools and mindset to break free from them and make the most of every moment. We'll dive into real-life stories that reveal how even simple changes can lead to extraordinary transformation in our relationships, personal growth, and even our sense of purpose. By the end of this video, you'll understand how to embrace change with confidence, open your heart to empathy, and learn how to let go of outdated beliefs that no longer serve you. You'll also gain a deeper awareness of how to truly connect with those around you, leaving a legacy of understanding, growth, and connection. So stay with us until the end, because the wisdom you'll gain from this journey could shape the rest of your life. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. 1. A closed mind, refusing to embrace new ideas as the years pass by. There's a certain comfort that settles in, like an old familiar coat draped over our shoulders. We've lived through countless experiences, faced countless hardships, and overcome challenges that have shaped us into who we are today. And while there is wisdom in that journey, there is also the risk of becoming too comfortable, too set in our ways. One of the most dangerous habits that can creep into old age is the tendency to close our minds to new ideas, as though the world has nothing more to teach us. This mindset, though it may feel safe, is a quiet thief, stealing away opportunities for growth, connection, and joy. It's the kind of thief that doesn't break into your home, but instead sneaks in through the small cracks in your heart, leaving you unaware of what you've lost until it's too late. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking we've seen it all. After all, we've lived through decades of experiences, some painful, some beautiful, all of them meaningful. But there's a harsh truth that many of us, especially as we get older, need to confront. If we close ourselves off to the world, we risk becoming stagnant. Our hearts and minds become like stagnant water, still lifeless and lacking the vibrancy that comes from embracing change and learning. And yet the world continues to turn, to evolve, to offer us new perspectives, ideas and connections to reject, that is, to deny the richness of the present moment. A closed mind is often built on fear, fear of being wrong, fear of change, or perhaps most painful of all, fear of looking foolish. We've spent a lifetime cultivating a sense of self, of identity, and the thought of having to challenge it can feel overwhelming. It's far easier to cling to the familiar, to shut our eyes to anything that feels foreign or uncomfortable. But life, with all its beauty and unpredictability, is full of surprises. Some of those surprises can be uncomfortable, yes, but they are also what makes life worth living. To close ourselves off from them is to deny ourselves the opportunity to truly live in the present, to experience the fullness of what it means to be human. I remember speaking with a man once, a man who had spent decades living in his way, steadfast in his beliefs and routines. He had no interest in technology. "What do I need a computer for?" he would say, with a shrug. "I've lived perfectly fine without it." There was a finality in his voice, an assurance that there was nothing more to be gained. It wasn't until his family, to stay connected, persuaded him to try video calls, that something changed, and what a beautiful change it was. For the first time in years he was able to see his grandson's face and watch his eyes light up with excitement as he shared stories about his day. For the first time in ages he could read his grandson bedtime stories, his voice filled with love and connection. It wasn't just a technological breakthrough, it was a moment of profound human connection, one that would have been impossible if he hadn't opened his mind, if he hadn't let go of his resistance to change. That small shift opened up an entirely new world for him when he had no idea he was missing. But this isn't just about technology or trying something new, it's about the people in our lives. When we close ourselves off to new ideas, we inadvertently close ourselves off to others as well. We begin to reject their perspectives, their experiences, and their truths. It's so easy to dismiss what we don't understand, to tell ourselves that our way is the only way. But over time, that rejection creates a wall between us and the people we love. And the tragedy of that is not just the missed opportunities to learn from others, but the missed opportunities to truly connect. The world is full of incredible, diverse people, each with their own stories to tell and their wisdom to share. But when we close our minds, we isolate ourselves, depriving ourselves of the joy that comes from sharing and learning together. Opening our minds doesn't mean we have to abandon our values or who we are. It doesn't mean we throw away everything we've believed in or fought for. What it does mean is that we make room for curiosity, for humility, for the acknowledgement that we don't have all the answers. It means saying, I don't know everything, and that's okay. It's a willingness to be vulnerable, to admit that there is still so much to learn, even at the age of 70, 80, or 90. Learning is not reserved for the young. It is a lifelong gift, a gift that keeps our spirits alive, keeps us engaged with the world around us, and keeps us growing. When we open our minds, we open ourselves to the possibility of joy, growth, and connection, things we can experience until our last breath as we grow older. We often find comfort in the familiar, but true growth comes when we step outside of our comfort zones, when we open ourselves to the unknown. Don't let fear steal away the beauty that still exists in the world. Embrace change. Embrace new ideas. And most importantly, embrace the people around you with an open heart and mind. Because in doing so, you'll find that life is not something that's over. It's something that's just beginning. Blaming others, avoiding responsibility, blaming others for the circumstances of our lives is one of the most insidious and damaging habits that can silently creep into our minds as we age. It's incredibly easy to fall into this trap, isn't it? When life gets difficult, when things don't turn out the way we hoped, it feels comforting, almost like a warm blanket, to point the finger outward instead of turning inward and facing our role in what's happening. But here's the painful truth. This habit, though easy and familiar, keeps us stuck. It holds us back from experiencing the kind of growth, fulfillment, and inner peace that only comes when we take personal responsibility for our lives. Blaming others is like building a protective wall around ourselves, a wall that shields us from the vulnerability of admitting our flaws, weaknesses, and missteps. It's easier, so much easier, to say, "It wasn't my fault," than to take a deep breath, face the discomfort, and ask ourselves, what could I have done differently? It feels like a defense mechanism, but in reality it's a self-imposed prison each time we blame someone else. Whether it's for a failed relationship, an unfulfilled dream, or even the deteriorating state of our health, we give away our power to make things better. We surrender the ability to take action, to learn from our mistakes, and to change the course of our lives. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment one below to let me know that you are still here with me. I remember a woman, an older woman, who would constantly lament the distance between her and her family. They're too busy for me. She'd sigh, her voice heavy with sadness. They've moved on with their lives, and I'm here all alone, forgotten. And you could hear the pain in her words, a deep ache of loneliness that touched my heart. But as much as I understood her pain, her constant blaming kept her trapped in that painful narrative. She couldn't see beyond her sorrow, couldn't recognize the power she had within herself to heal that rift over time. I encouraged her gently at first to take a step back and look at what she could do. And little by little she began to take ownership. She called her children not out of obligation, but just to say, "I love you." She wrote heartfelt letters to her grandchildren recounting the stories of her youth and sharing pieces of herself. The most remarkable transformation happened then, not because her family suddenly changed, but because she did. She stopped blaming and started reconnecting, and in doing so, she changed everything. The truth is, blaming others doesn't just rob us of growth. It slowly poisons the relationships we care about. When we live in a state of constant blame, we close our hearts to the very people we want to be close to. We fail to see how we contribute to the dynamics around us and how our actions or inactions might have fueled the tensions or misunderstandings. Blaming others distances us from those we love. It builds walls instead of bridges, making reconciliation harder and deeper wounds harder to heal. Relationships thrive on mutual accountability. They require us to take responsibility, admit our mistakes, and own our part in the story, no matter how painful that might be. Taking responsibility isn't easy. It demands a kind of humility that most of us find difficult to embrace, a courage to face those uncomfortable truths about ourselves that we've been avoiding. But in my experience, it is the most empowering choice we can make. When we stop deflecting blame and start taking ownership of our actions, we reclaim our agency. Suddenly, the challenges we once viewed as overwhelming obstacles become stepping stones, opportunities for growth, learning, and even healing. And in the end, we begin to discover something far more precious than blame: peace. Peace comes from knowing that no matter what life throws at us, we have the power to shape our response. The peace comes from realizing that we are no longer the victims of our circumstances, but the authors of our own stories. 3. Arrogance thinking. You know, it all as we age. There's this overwhelming sense that we've lived through so much and gained an ocean of wisdom. We've survived challenges, weathered countless storms, and gathered lessons from years of experience. Yet in the quiet corners of our minds, there lurks a trap that is so easy to fall into: the belief that we know it all, after all. If life has taught us anything, shouldn't it be that we are experts in our journeys? But here's the painful truth. This arrogance, this stubborn belief that we've reached the peak of understanding, is one of the most dangerous illusions we can entertain as we grow older. The tendency to think we've seen everything that our experiences are. The final word is incredibly tempting. It's as if we wear our years like a badge of honor, and forget that while we may know a lot, there is always more to discover. It's not just an unfortunate mindset, it's a barrier to deeper wisdom, richer relationships, and the kind of personal growth that comes from staying open, vulnerable, and willing to evolve. The tragedy is that arrogance often parades itself as confidence, fooling us into thinking we're in the right, when in fact we're closing ourselves off from the endless sea of possibilities. Confidence, I believe, is a quiet strength. It comes from an awareness that no matter how much we know, we're just scratching the surface. Confidence is rooted in humility. It acknowledges that there's always room for improvement and that no one has all the answers. Arrogance, however, is different. It's loud and stubborn. It insists that there's only one way, one truth, one way of seeing the world, and that way is ours. It shuts out new ideas and fresh perspectives, drawing a thick, suffocating wall between ourselves and those around us. What's worse, it isolates us in a prison of our own making, even as we believe we're the wisest person in the room. I once had a conversation with an older gentleman who had spent his entire career as a successful engineer. His mind was sharp, his intellect undeniable. But as much as he had accomplished in his field, there was this constant need to prove himself. Conversations with him often felt less like exchanges and more like lectures, with him dominating the discourse. The love he had for his family was clear, but the arrogance in him overshadowed the simple beauty of connection. Over time, his family began to distance themselves, not because they didn't care for him, but because they began to feel invisible in his presence. Their voices, their thoughts were simply drowned out by his constant need to assert his knowledge. It wasn't until a humbling experience struck him, struggling to use a new smartphone and seeking help from his grandchildren, that his heart started to soften. In that moment, he realized that wisdom isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about having the courage to admit when we don't know something and being willing to ask for help. It's about remaining open, constantly learning and realizing that every interaction, no matter how small, holds growth potential. His journey wasn't just about his career accomplishments anymore. It was about understanding that being truly wise means embracing the fact that we don't always have the answers, and that's okay. The humbling beauty of growing older, after all, is that we learn that the true strength lies not in knowing everything, but in being willing to always be a student of life. As I reflect on this, I realize how vital it is to keep our hearts and minds open, especially as we age. Our wisdom, while valuable, is never complete. There's always more to discover, more to understand, and more to learn. And if we allow ourselves to stay humble, if we allow ourselves to be receptive to new ideas, new people, and new ways of thinking, we will continue to grow, continue to deepen our relationships, and continue to enrich our lives. 4. Lack of empathy, failing to understand others as we journey through life. One truth becomes ever more apparent: the deepest and most meaningful connections we forge aren't built on the simple exchange of opinions, but on the powerful foundation of understanding. And yet, as time goes by, it's easy to see how one of the most isolating and heartbreaking habits a person can develop, particularly as they grow older, is the loss of empathy. A lack of empathy is like a wall that rises between people, obscuring the warmth of human connection. It's a failure to look beyond the narrow lens of our own experiences and truly reach out to the feelings and lives of others. It's one of those quietly destructive forces that, without realizing it, causes relationships to wither and erode. Empathy is not just an act of kindness, it's a profound form of connection. To truly empathize means to step into another person's shoes and experience their world as if it were your own. It means allowing their joy to ignite a spark in you and their pain to weigh heavy on your heart. It's the understanding that we are not isolated islands, but part of a vast interconnected web of human experience. But when empathy fades, loneliness creeps in. The world becomes narrower and colder, as if the only reality that matters is our own people become strangers in our lives, and even those closest to us begin to feel like distant figures. Without empathy, we rob ourselves of the richness of genuine connection. I remember meeting a man years ago who, for reasons unknown to him at the time, often dismissed the feelings of his family. His daughter would share her frustrations with him, and he would brush it off with a comment like, "You're overreacting." His grandson, bubbling with excitement over something new, was met with a casual, "That's not important." It was as though his world was set to a different frequency, and he couldn't tune into the emotions of those around him. The hurt he caused wasn't intentional, but the distance between him and his loved ones grew. His words, meant as harmless judgments, were like a slow poison, slowly eroding the trust and warmth that once defined his relationships. It wasn't until his health began to decline, and the one solid connections he had with his family began to loosen and unravel, that the true impact of his emotional neglect became painfully clear. He found himself struggling with isolation and a deep sense of being misunderstood, with no one around him, truly seeing or hearing him one day in a moment of raw vulnerability. He said, "Now I understand. Now I know how deeply it hurts to feel unseen, unheard. It's a loneliness I never thought I'd experience." His words lingered with me, reminding me of how precious and rare true empathy is. Empathy asks us to listen, not just with our ears, but with our hearts. It demands that we pause, step back from our rush of thoughts, and truly hear what the other person is saying, even if we don't fully grasp their emotions or see things through their eyes. Empathy calls us to meet them where they are. This is perhaps most crucial in the later stages of life, when we face generational divides that sometimes feel insurmountable. The younger generation may live in ways that seem foreign, their struggles different from our own, their language a mystery. But empathy is what bridges these gaps, reminding us that at the core of it all, we all long for acceptance, for understanding, for connection to fail. And empathy isn't just an injury to others. It's a blow to our humanity. It diminishes us as people, narrowing our world until it shrinks down to a shadow of what it could be. When we lose empathy, we lose the ability to deeply relate to others, to offer the love and understanding that heal wounds and nurture relationships. We become blind to the struggles of those around us, deaf to their cries for connection, and mute when they need our words of comfort. And in doing so, we are robbed of one of life's greatest joys, the ability to truly love and be loved in return. Yet the beauty of empathy is that it doesn't require grand sweeping gestures. It's often in the small everyday acts that we show our care for others. It might be sitting quietly with someone who is grieving, offering the simple comfort of your presence without the need to fix anything. Or it might be saying, "I see you and I hear you," when someone shares their innermost struggles. Sometimes empathy is as small as holding someone's hand when words feel insufficient. It's recognizing that each person is carrying their unseen burdens and choosing to offer compassion instead of judgment. Empathy is at its core a choice. It's a choice to prioritize connection over convenience, understanding over ego, and love over difference. It takes effort, yes, but the rewards are immeasurable. Empathy enriches our relationships, deepens our human connections, and opens us to the shared beauty of the human experience. It reminds us that we are not solitary figures wandering through life. We are part of something much bigger, something bound together by our shared capacity for understanding, compassion, and love. So, my dear friends, let's take a moment to reflect. When was the last time we listened to someone with our full, undivided attention? When was the last time we set aside our judgments and tried to understand a perspective different from our own? And perhaps most importantly, how can we bring more empathy into our lives, not just for others, but for ourselves as well? After all, empathy is not just a gift we offer to others. It's a gift we give ourselves, a gift that enriches our soul, deepens our capacity for love, and strengthens the beautiful connections we share with the people around us. It's never too late to cultivate empathy and let it guide us through the complexities of life. Let's choose empathy every single day and watch how it transforms our world. 5. Fear of change, clinging to. The familiar change for so many of us feels like an unwelcome intruder, a disruptive force that threatens the comfort and peace we've carefully crafted over the years. This feeling becomes especially pronounced as we grow older, when the warmth of routines offers not just comfort, but a deep sense of security. The familiar becomes a sanctuary, a place where we can retreat from the chaos of the world and the uncertainties of life. But life, as much as we wish it would slow down, is never static. It moves, it evolves, and it continually beckons us to grow with it, whether we're ready or not. One of the most limiting and painful habits we can develop as we age is the fear of change. It's the desperate clinging to the past, believing that by holding on tightly to what we've always known, we can somehow protect ourselves from the unpredictability of the present and the future. But in truth, this fear of change doesn't safeguard us. It traps us. It holds us prisoner in a space where everything feels increasingly disconnected and out of sync with the ever-shifting world around us. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me. I vividly recall a woman I once knew named Eleanor. She was a soul who had poured decades of love and labor into the house where she had raised her children, a house filled with echoes of laughter, tears, and cherished memories as she grew older. Her health began to decline, and her family gently suggested that she move to a smaller, more manageable home, one that was closer to them, so they could provide support. The very thought of leaving that house, her home. Her history was met with fierce resistance. "This is where I raised my children," she would say, her voice trembling. "I can't leave it behind. It's all I have left." To her, moving meant losing everything, the memories, the milestones, the very identity that home had given her. But when Eleanor finally summoned the courage to let go of her beloved house, she discovered something profound: freedom. The smaller home was easier to maintain, and being closer to her family filled her life with more connection, more laughter and more love than she had felt in years. "I was so afraid of losing my past." She later confessed that "I didn't realize how much happiness the future could bring." Her words broke my heart and opened my eyes. She had feared changed so much that it had almost kept her from living the life she deserved. The truth is, fear of change is often deeply rooted in the fear of loss of control, loss of identity, and most painfully, loss of the familiar. It's easy to believe that resisting change can somehow protect us from the painful reality of aging, from feeling irrelevant or forgotten. But what we fail to realize is that resisting change doesn't prevent it. It only makes it harder to face life. Much like a river flows relentlessly forward, regardless of our wishes, clinging to the banks, refusing to let go, doesn't stop the current. It only leaves us behind, stranded in a past that no longer serves us. Adapting to change doesn't mean erasing our past or abandoning the essence of who we are. It means acknowledging that growth is a lifelong journey, one that doesn't stop just because we've reached a certain age. Each stage of life has something new to offer, even if it doesn't look like what we expected. Embracing change means letting go of the things that no longer nourish us and making space for what can enrich our lives. Now, this could be as simple as learning a new skill, picking up a healthier habit, or adopting a different way of thinking. It could be daring to try something you've always wanted to do. But we're too afraid to attempt. Change is not just about doing something different. It's about discovering new parts of yourself. It's about opening your heart to new experiences, new relationships, and the possibilities that arise when we stop fearing the unknown. And perhaps most importantly, change brings the opportunity to connect with others, especially the younger generations, who are often living in ways we may not fully understand. By embracing change, we show them that we are willing to grow with them, not against them. We bridge the gap between the old and the new, creating deeper, more meaningful relationships that transcend generational divides. Facing change with courage doesn't mean we won't feel fear. It's inevitable. We will feel it, sometimes deeply. But what truly matters is our decision to move forward despite the fear, to take that next step. Even when our knees feel weak and our hearts tremble each time we do, we build resilience. We remind ourselves that we are capable of adapting, capable of thriving, even when the road ahead feels uncertain. In the end, it's not the changes we resist that hurt us. It's the ones we refuse to accept. Because in that refusal, we miss the most beautiful part of living, the chance to evolve, to grow, and to live fully, even in the face of life's inevitable transitions. As we wrap up today's discussion, I want you to take a moment and reflect on everything we've explored together. Change is a constant in our lives, especially as we grow older. And while it can be intimidating, it's also an opportunity to evolve, grow, and embrace the unknown with courage. So, what have you learned so far? How can you apply these insights to your journey? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Share one thing you've learned today that you're committed to bringing into your life. What step can you take? No matter how small, to embrace change and let go of fear. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content that helps you live a fulfilled and empowered life. I look forward to reading your thoughts and hearing how you plan to embrace change in your unique way. Thanks for watching.